Welcome back, everyone. This episode of my prog rock show is the second part of consecutive prog albums that could be four-sided. Remember, this is just for fun and not perfect. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, check it out. I will leave a link in the description below. Let's begin. Van der Graaf Generator started life with a lot of potential. They were signed to Tony Stratton Smith's fledgling Charisma label and even headlined the Six Bob tour with Lindisfarne and Genesis on the bill, not to mention appearing on the cover of Melody Maker as Britain's most fashionable band. In 1971, Van der Graaf would embark on their most creative project yet, Pawn Hearts. As brilliant as the album was, it didn't sell, and with pushback from the record company, the band decided to split in 1972. The band would reform in 1974 and begin performing live in 1975, with new numbers on their set list that would be recorded for their God Bluff album, released that same year, picking up where they left off with Hugh Batten's organ and Peter Hamill's voice, both dark and grinding, along with David Jackson's saxophone and Guy Evans's drums. Although stripped down compared to Pawn Hearts, God Bluff is a contender for Van der Graaf Generator's finest work. The follow-up, 1976's Still Life, could fit in as sides 3 and 4 to God Bluff. Still Life maintained the dark edge from its predecessor mainly due to the fact that 2 of the songs, Pilgrim and La Rosa, were recorded during the God Bluff sessions. With Peter Hamill's side projects, which usually included members of Van der Graaf, along with their normal output, this would prove to be a very productive period for a band that could almost be considered Emerson, Lake and Palmer's evil cousin. Rush's first 15 years of recording was like a rinse and repeat cycle, with 4 studio albums followed by 1 live recording in 3 distinct phases, with the beginning of phase 2 as my favorite, probably because this is when they reached their progressive rock peak. Rush would finally tour the UK in 1977, what they considered the home of their musical roots. That summer, the sessions would take place in the UK for what would become A Farewell to Kings, the first of 3 albums recorded there. Rush's sound was evolving at an exponential rate with an expanded use of synthesizers. The title track and Xanadu made this very clear. Closer to the Heart, with more of a pop feel, would be released as the single. The album would close with Cygnus X1. The following year, Rush would release Hemispheres with Book 2 of Cygnus X1, or otherwise known as the title track, as a 6-part sidelong epic and carrying on the progressive sound from their previous album. The flip side is also equally impressive. You cannot deny that A Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres are a 1-2 punch to close out the 1970s. Rush would be pushed into shorter songs and gain more of a foothold into the mainstream with songs like Spirit of Radio and Tom Sawyer, and then Geddy Lee started going a little overboard with the synthesizers. Rarebird started off strong after signing to the Charisma label and releasing the single Sympathy, a massive hit in Europe. Rarebird also uniquely consisted of 2 keyboardists, Graham Fields and Dave Caffinetti. Rarebird's self-titled debut was released in 1969 with John Anthony producing, who would also produce label mates Van der Graaf Generator and Genesis. Rarebird's first album consisted of shorter songs with dueling keys that represented the early progressive sound very well. The album could easily seeg into their sophomore album As Your Mind Flies By without too much notice, as if it could be a double album. However, the second side of As Your Mind Flies By is consumed by the almost 20-minute multi-movement song Flight, a culmination of 2 worthy albums. After this, the band was literally poised to take off when Graham Fields would depart for his own band, aptly called Fields. Although Rarebird would continue, Fields sounded more like the original Rarebird than Rarebird did after Fields left. Does that make any sense? Rarebird did have a few more albums left in the tank, and Dave Caffinetti would resurface as Viv Savage in the movie This Is Spinal Tap. The history of Renaissance, or Renaissance, depending on where you're from, is unique to say the least. In short, the Yardbirds split in 1968, resulting in 2 bands, one called Renaissance, formed by Keith Relf and Jim McCarty, and a lesser-known band, Led Zeppelin, formed by Jimmy Page. If anyone knows what happened to that band, tell me in the comments section below. Renaissance would have a complete overhaul by their third album 1972's Prologue, with Annie Haslam taking over vocals and John Tout piano. Classifying their sound is tricky because of classical and folk influences, so we will just go with symphonic progressive rock. The two albums that could be foresighted are 1973's Ashes Are Burning and 1974's Turn of the Cards, perhaps because I get them slightly confused in my head at times. Both albums offer beautifully sung vocals by Haslam, rich classical piano, and acoustic guitars. They both have the same number of songs, and track lengths are similar, with first and last songs being around the 10-minute mark. The formula definitely worked, making both essential Renaissance albums. The following album, Scheherazade and Other Stories, changed things up with a side-long epic. Surprisingly, it wasn't until 1978 Renaissance would reach number 10 with the single Northern Lights. I did a video on Renaissance for their Farewell and Gratitude tour in the fall of 2024. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Coming from Simon Dupree and the Big Sound, the original core of Gentle Giant were the three Shulman brothers. With eldest brother Phil departing, Gentle Giant would settle into a five-piece. Their music proved to be very complex with classical influences, which some called pretentious, but it was really just a lack of understanding their music. I could have gone a couple different directions with this, but I ultimately chose In a Glass House and The Power and the Glory as a possible four-sided behemoth. Both albums continue their tradition of dense compositions, never letting their foot off the gas. Even the following album, Freehand, would fit well with its predecessors. Eventually, Gentle Giant would let off of the gas, and in 1977 scale back their sound with their Missing Piece album. The song Betcha Thought We Couldn't Do It really showed their attempt at commercial success, and yeah, they couldn't do it. Don't even get me started on Giant for a day. I feel like I have to wear the cutout Giant mask on the cover in shame when admitting I bought this album. After 1980, there is nothing left in the tank for Gentle Giant, leaving us overall with a great catalog of music. Wishful thinking, I suppose. If they continued to release tropical-themed prog albums, Emerson, Lake & Palmer would have lasted another decade at least. Missed opportunity there. So what did I miss? Let me know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Let's get passionate on Passion Island. I'm coming for you. Let's get passionate on Passion Island. Let's go the whole way through.